I'm Jeanette Pincus. This is Tuesday, December 2nd, 2025, and I've got the honor of talking with Nancy Lubar about her life here in the Dallas community and what she's done with herself. So to begin with, Nancy, I'd like to hear about your family, your parents, the background that you come from.
My grandfather came through New York probably around 1880 or so, and he married, had 2 children. One of them died. I think it was probably appendicitis, and the mother thought she'd eaten a bad banana, so she would never let the other child eat bananas. At any rate, his wife died, maybe in childbirth, we don't know that. And so he came down to Dallas. He had a cousin here, could have been Donosky. And he remarried quickly. He wanted to bring his little girl down. Came home one day and found the little girl tied to the bedposts and the new wife beating her. You may not want that in here.
That's okay.
I wish I knew who she was.
Yeah.
He picked up the fire poker and beat her back and divorced her, which meant the child had to go back to New York. So in 1900, my grandmother, they were pretty much, didn't live that far apart in Poland, Suwalki County. Her sisters, who were older and married, had all come to this area with their husbands. And so she came to join them. I have heard that her father came with her, came over the seas with her. But Dallas wasn't religious enough for him, so he went back. Anyway, she was immediately fixed up with my grandfather, Jacob Donsky. They got married in 1900, and then 10 months later, the first of their 9 children together was born. That was Louis. And it just went on and on for there. They kept going till she, poor thing, had 9 children. Plus the other one finally got old enough that she could come down here and find a husband.
That's nice.
So there were 10 children.
What members of, do you know, congregation they were members of
Yes.
at that time?
Yes, they were all, when they first came, I think my grandfather was one of the founders of Agudas Hakim.
Okay.
And they were all, he was very religious. I remember as a small child hating going to a Passover because we were so scared of him. He would yell, and so we had to be absolutely quiet. But then once he died, they went to Shearith Israel. They were always the Shearith Israel. Mm-hmm. They thought we were heathens because my mother didn't know Hebrew. And so she asked her mother if she minded if we went to temple where she could understand the services. So we were switched to temple. And temple was fun.
You enjoyed going, and
I loved temple. Yeah. And before that, I guess my grandfather was still alive because I had to go to Hebrew school after regular school every day. The bus would pick me up. And I couldn't have been more than 4 or 5 at the latest. So.
And what school did you go to? Or what area of town were you living in?
Robert E. Lee.
Okay.
Robert E. Lee. It was over in East Dallas, which is where we lived, on Morningside.
How many siblings did you have?
I had 2, an older sister who is deceased now, and my
What's her name?
Barbara Kaplan Levy, Pfefferman Levy. She married twice. And then my brother is Leon Kaplan. He's fortunately still around.
What did you feel like life in Dallas was as a child when you were growing up?
I didn't know any different. I know that the early pictures I've seen, my hair was pulled up because there was no air conditioning, and we just played outside and sweated. Yeah.
And so the area of town that you said you lived in?
Was East Dallas.
East
We're
Dallas.
Morningside and Greenville Avenue.
And so elementary school, you mentioned you went to
Robert E. Lee.
Do you remember what schools after that, like middle school or junior high, high school?
Yes, yes. We moved to Prestonshire when I was about 9. So I went to Preston Hollow. And then I went to Hockaday. And then after that I went to Mount Holyoke.
Okay, now that's interesting. So when you were at Hockaday, I mean, were there many other Jewish
There were
girls
4 of us.
Out of how many in the class? It seemed like
Maybe 3 in my class of 72.
Okay. And Holyoke must have been an interesting experience for you too in
Oh,
college.
yes.
What did you major there?
Music and drama.
So did you play an instrument?
I played piano.
That's wonderful. Okay. When you were growing up here in Dallas, were you in any social clubs, organizations?
I remember coming to a drama club at the JCC, and we did The Wizard of Oz, and they even got us on television. Karen Stern, who used to be very active in the JCC, she was there because we became friends, not long before she died. And she brought me a picture that shows us both in a production of The Wizard of Oz.
That's great. So that's where you started liking drama, I guess. You had theater here.
Yes, I was Dorothy.
Was it also at Hockaday? What did you do there?
I was in lots of the plays. You're taking me past my number.
So, well, actually, theater would take up a lot of time.
It did take up a lot of time.
And you had mentioned that you had gone to Temple Emmanuel, so you were probably going to Sunday school after the Hebrew school. Did you get confirmed at Temple Emmanuel?
Yes, yes. And my mother wanted to get me out of the house. So when I turned 5 or 6, I think you had to be 6, she went up to the principal's office with me and told them how advanced I was. She wanted me out. And they put me in a higher class, so I started in 2nd grade.
Oh, wow, okay.
And then I discovered in Sunday school I had a good friend who was in that higher grade. So
do you remember that her name?
I don't remember her name. I know that because of her I went up to Raymond Israel, and he was the head of education. And I told him that. He believed me. I could have said I was 2 grades up.
Yeah.
He said, of course we'll change you. Here, we'll take you in this class. And it was just like that. I was moved to the next higher class. And that's where I met Richard Marcus, who I married a long time later.
Yes, how about that? So you all grew up together.
We grew up together. He was friends with 2 other people, Ronnie Cohen, who's still alive, and Bruce Lipshe, who has total memory loss. But the 3 of them were always together,
That's wonderful.
even on hayrides.
Yeah. Now you mentioned your maiden name
Was Kaplan.
Was Kaplan.
Bess and Harry Kaplan.
Okay. So you had a lot of family here, relatives?
Only on the Donsky side.
Okay.
And my mother's mother had all of those, 4 sisters and brothers.
Yeah.
I believe they went to Fort Worth. But so I had all of these second cousins and third cousins and fourth cousins, and my father said that every time they went on a drive through Texas, they had to stop in each small town so she could go see a relative.
That too. That's how the Jews were. Everybody moved into these small towns. Yes. So the neighborhood that you grew up in, how would you feel if you described it? I mean, I know you said you did go to a private school. Did you know your friends in the neighborhood? It was kind of
I know
separate.
people from Sunday school.
So
that tells me whoever that girl was must have been in Sunday school.
with you. Okay. Growing up, do you remember having to deal with any anti-Semitism? Or feeling a little bit, I guess, pointed out in a way, especially since it's interesting that you went to a private school too where there weren't that many.
No, there weren't. I have an earlier memory. I had long, curly auburn hair until it changed. And I was walking down an alley near my house, and a woman stopped me and said, "Oh, you're such a pretty girl. What's your name?" And she said, "And where do you go to church?" And I said, "Temple Emmanuel." And she lost interest.
It's something like that too. You never forget.
I didn't
one
forget
incident like that to do that. I know I've asked you this, but I just want to make sure we covered the whole thing. The Jewish affiliations you had during childhood was from Temple Emmanuel. You got to attend the JCC, which I guess is in the same location. Was it here?
I think it was, but I remember going to summer camp way in South Dallas where there was a park near it where they had the old homes. It was right next to that.
That's lovely that they were using that park. I didn't know that. I've never heard that too. I'm glad you shared that.
Yeah.
That's where they were having it. Also, I know what we had mentioned. Was your family members of the Columbian Club?
Mm-hmm. And that was one of my awful memories. Before the Columbian Club moved to where it is now, it was somewhere Greenville area.
Which sounds like where your neighborhood, where you originally
Probably.
from. Yes.
And I remember my mother putting me in swimming lessons there. And by then I must have been 6 or 7. And there was a mean, very strict swimming teacher. And he wanted me to dive off the diving board. And there was no way. So my mother was sitting with 3 other women eating lunch and playing cards, and I went running over to her. I don't know why, I thought she'd protect me. And the man came after me, grabbed me, picked me up, and threw me into the deep end of the water.
And how has your swimming been since then?
Good.
Good. Okay. When going back now, that you graduated from Hockaday and you went to
Mount Holyoke.
And your major was theater and music. When you graduated from there, what did you do?
When I graduated, I went back to school, got a teaching degree.
And what school was that
I think
at?
that was at SMU.
So you came back to Dallas.
Because I really wanted to go back to New England. I really did. And as soon as I got that, I went back up to Boston, got a job teaching at the Harvard Elementary School, not the real one.
Okay.
And eventually I met my first husband there. It turned out we lived across the street from each other in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And we got married, and I taught for about a year after, maybe 2 years, but then I got pregnant, and I didn't want to have a boring life like all the women I knew. So I introduced him. I was running a group in Washington for the younger diplomats. They needed someone young to entertain them and have events for them, parties, that kind of thing. And the woman who helped me do that, her husband was an African, he was Kenyan, and he was writing a PhD thesis on how it was time to get rid of the British and the Asian middlemen and only use Africans. So I cleverly introduced him to my husband, who his father had been in real estate in Washington, and he knew all of these people in real estate who would just love to have a reason to go travel to East Africa. So they all invested. We moved right after my daughter was born. I had heard too many stories of people who had their baby in Uganda and had natural childbirth. That wasn't the problem. It was getting rid of the hookworm after. So I didn't want to do that. So I had my baby in Washington, and you had to be in Kenya under 3 months old if you didn't want to get all the vaccinations before then. So we moved there when she was 2 months old. And Kenya was wonderful.
Wow.
It was just gorgeous. And we stayed there for 2 years while they built townhouses. And they were funny because as soon as we'd get something up, it wouldn't work right. There was no engineer. There were just people who had never been trained telling us what to do. So the windows over there, you would open them by unclicking, and they would open. They put the latches on so that if you unhooked the window, it broke it. And the shower floors wouldn't drain because they were on an uphill.
Okay.
Wonderful memories.
Yeah.
The worst was then they finally got the upper floors in, and bathrooms, the water turned on. And the next morning they came back to see, oh, how wonderful, running water. And there was water running down the stairs because his partner's uncle was one of the night watchmen, and he'd never had a bath. They bathe in the lakes. And so he wanted to have a bath. And he figured out how to turn the faucet on, but not how to turn it off.
What a story.
So the investors really didn't get their money back.
And then you moved back.
Well, first they tried something to do with shoe eyelets. That was going to be the next project, and that didn't work. So we didn't move back here. We both wanted to live somewhere else, and London was perfect. They spoke English there. And he was a lawyer. So we moved to London where he knew someone, got a job there, and we settled in London for 5 years.
And you're raising your daughter there.
Yeah, she had a perfect...
What is her name?
Catherine Lubar. Okay. She has a website I did for her. She's a painter.
Ah, okay.
And she had a beautiful, beautiful English accent. Until as time went on, it was hard for him. He was used to growing up in a place where everyone knew him. And he didn't like no one knowing who he was. So the marriage kind of blew up. I decided to move back here where she'd have cousins and relatives. And when she came here, she went to Hockaday, and no one understood her. At least the classmates didn't understand her. The teachers loved her. And then one little girl, Beth, I'll think of it. She came up to Catherine pat her on the arm and said, "It's okay. I understand. I have a speech problem too." But Catherine worked very hard then to lose the accent.
When you came back here, did you go to work?
Yes, came back with her, got a job teaching for a year at, I think it was Akiba.
Oh, okay.
But then I really wanted to go back to school and do something else. So I went to UTD and got my master's in international business. And that was nice. I mean, I enjoyed it. And then after that, somehow I was looking for work, and I took a job at TI. And TI always had layoffs.
Oh.
And I had no scientific math background, so on one of their layoffs, they laid me off. And I got home very upset and had a phone call from someone who worked at EDS. His wife had gotten a list of who was laid off, and this man called me. He wanted me to come in for an interview because I had worked on a machine that they were getting, and they needed someone who knew it.
Isn't that something?
And so I went in for the interview. They hired me, and I was there for 3 years. But it was a scary place to work for. They had all these rules and clients all over the place. One man, I remember, he'd gone to Salt Lake City, and he smoked on the street. Well, it turned out the group they were working for were anti-smoking, so he was fired.
So did you decide to leave them?
I decided after 3 years I was going to go somewhere else, and I got a job at I can't remember the name of it,
That's okay.
but they took me, and I loved it there.
Yeah.
The work was easier. I understood it better because I'd been in it for a while, and they went under after a couple of years.
Yeah.
So everyone was going under at that time. And then I went to another place that I also can't remember the name of. You should have got me when I was younger. And I liked that place. Yeah. And then they went under.
Was the nature, I guess, of the
70s.
Yes, that was happening. When I'm looking over these things, you were doing more systems and analysts
I was a systems analyst.
And then I'm looking at all the boards that you've been participating in, and the leadership roles that you've also, the chairing, the co-chairing that you've done, and that it's just amazing that I want to review all this because you have that's a resume of all the volunteering that
it was a long life.
Yes, and you kept finding different things for people to.
I've always wanted to do things to help other people. Always. When Richard died, I was so depressed because Trump stopped all of the refugees coming in.
Let's talk about, I know you mentioned that it's been one of your passions is to be working with refugees, so I think let's discuss that, how you started getting involved with that.
I'd always try to do projects, something I thought people needed. Did they need food? Did they need clothing? Something like that. And I guess I got that from my mother because she was always making sure people were clothed and fed. And so I'm trying to think back. Oh, okay, I know. There was an article in the Dallas Morning News one day by a woman, her name was Kim Horner, and she wrote about a new apartment complex called Pebbles in Vickery Meadow on Park Lane. And she said, these women have no husbands, some of them have small children, some of them don't, and they have nothing. They're thrilled to just have a bed. And there were 40 apartments. And I went down to the 3 Dallas agencies and talked with them and said, I want to adopt them, because this was something I knew I could do. And they let me adopt them, and then they wanted me to adopt another place that had 150 apartments. I said, let me do this first.
Was this in the, what, was it in the 80s or the 90s that you?
That was in the 80s.
Okay, that's what I thought. 80s.
And I got Temple involved, got lots of volunteers from there, lots of donations. People started calling me. I remember Harold Kleiman called me that they had 2 beautiful chairs. They needed a place, someone who needed them. So I would put these gorgeous chairs in these dumpy apartments. And the women, they loved them.
Where were the refugees coming from? Was it a
These were refugees. These were poor Dallas women
okay.
who had no, they were just desperate. They'd been at the bridge.
Okay.
And
the bridge, that is that the bridge is from domestic violence? What's the bridge?
No, the bridge is the first homeless center.
Homeless center, okay.
The domestic violence I probably did during that time too.
Okay.
And I would go to every synagogue in the evening, and I would just put little baskets up and put the cards for domestic violence. And I got to know different rabbis, and that was fun because it was like my family background. The conservative rabbis said, oh, it's those Reformed Jews. I found more prejudice there. And the Reformed Jews would say to me, I bet it's the conservative and Orthodox Jews.
I also saw that you were with JCRC, the Anti-Poverty Committee,
yes.
also. So you really were reaching out to any of the organizations that were starting to get involved with
yes.
helping with poverty.
Anything like that.
Yeah.
And the big thing there, and it's still here, is the payday loans.
Can you explain what that is?
The payday loans are when you need money desperately. You don't have a friend or a relative who can loan it to you. You don't have, maybe you're $100 short of paying your rent or getting a car. And they talk them into signing up with them. You are never able to pay it off. It goes, the interest, you keep paying off the interest for years. And when I finally left that committee, I thought they were getting the Texas government involved to make it illegal. But it turns out they never did, because the volunteer work I'm doing now, I talk to people who took payday loans.
To this day, isn't that something
Yeah.
that's been going on like that? I want to also mention, you mentioned your husband that just passed away, and I wanted to have you show a picture and say a little bit about him too.
Richard and I were
Richard.
born at the same hospital, him much earlier than me.
Put up his picture already.
Okay. Here's
Okay.
Richard.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
And as I said, we went to Sunday school together. My mother found a picture he gave me when he was 11 and I was 10. One of those old machine pictures.
Yeah.
So he got married young, and I was out of the country. Because after Kenya, we went to England. And when I went back, I would run into him in places. And then I guess it was a distant cousin had died, and I was meeting my cousin Marilyn at his house to,
And
you
this
know,
is
for the
Marilyn.
Shiva.
And this is Marilyn Payless.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
And this man came up to me that I thought was Richard Marcus, but he had gray hair. And I thought, this couldn't be him. His hair is all white or gray. And he kept talking to me, and he kept wanting me to come see his computer programs because he knew I was a systems analyst. And I thought it was supposed to be etchings. And I'm on and on and on. And he took my card, and the next night I was working late at work, and the phone rang, and it was Richard. And he said, I want you to come over and see my computer programs. And I went silent because I thought he was married. And she never let him out of her sight. She was so jealous of him. I mean, any place you saw them, if another woman came up, she would be there clutching him, holding on to him. He is my property. And he wasn't with her. And I was puzzled, but I could just imagine me going and ringing the doorbell and her answering and me saying, I'm here to see Richard's computer programs. But so I was so silent that finally he said, Sue and I are separated. So I went over and we went for Chinese food, and it was a thing from then on. We had so much in common.
And so, how long were you all together?
31 years we lived together.
Wow. That's wonderful. And he just passed away.
August or September of 2024.
That's recent. That's wonderful.
And we, it never occurred to us to get married until a couple of weeks before we knew he had lung cancer and wouldn't last. He lasted 11 years, which was a long time. And we had bought the graves together in 2006, so we already knew then we were going to be together in eternity. And he said, I just don't like the fact that on our graves you're going to have your ex-husband's last name. And I said, well, that's easy to change. And so we planned a wedding in 2 weeks, got married. We got David Stern and Nancy Caston to fit it in. Once I explained the reason, and they fit it in, but then he had COVID that day. So Nancy did the wedding, which was fine.
Yeah.
And so on the tombstone, which I had, it's now in place a few months ago, it says, Richard Marcus, beloved husband, and there's a Jewish star, and it says Nancy Lubar, beloved wife. And it doesn't have my death date yet.
Yes, of course not. Okay. That's lovely. Well, I also want to mention that I can see on here too is that you have been recognized with awards through the community, and it was an AJC Woman, a Spirit Award, and the JCPenney Community Service Awards, multiple times it says, and that, what is LWV?
League of Women Voters.
Okay.
They wanted to do both Richard and me. I guess two different groups had put us up. And so they did a joint presentation with Richard, and both of us won the award that year.
That's wonderful. So you've really had a very active community service, done so much for the Jewish and the whole community at large. That's wonderful.
Which is why I got so depressed after he died, because I had been ill, and I still don't have my strength back, and I'm not used to not helping, not doing anything. And I know I can help just by knowledge, but I can't lift furniture anymore. I spent years putting stuff in my
Together.
car
Uh-huh.
and then taking it to families. And we lived on another street for a while. It was a Pagewood townhouse. And people would just leave things for me on the front porch. And one day we were driving home and Richard said, "I've got to compliment you. This is the first time I haven't seen any donations on the front porch." And the next day there were more donations.
There was Well, I want to thank you so much for sharing so much of what you've done with your life here. Is there anything else that you'd like to share? I would say even things like you've mentioned some things, but you're such a special person. The values that you have, of what this means so much to you that you've gotten from your grandparents and parents that you would like to share.
Not from the grandparents, but most of my relatives would only be friends with Jews. And people are people. I have loved getting to know the Afghans. And each time we've gone to help them, I tell them I'm Jewish. I don't know that they knew what that meant, but I would tell them. Yeah. And my father always had friends who weren't Jewish, and he was very active in the Masonic Lodge. In fact, he was a 33-degree Mason. And my mother had friends who weren't Jewish, not many, but it was the segregation I didn't like. It was, how do people get to know you and know what you're capable of if you don't speak to them? Probably like the German Jews were when the Russian and Polish Jews came here. They could never date each other. The German Jews would never take the girls out. You knew that.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. It's just been a joy talking with you.
Thank you. You're a good
Thank you.
interviewer.